Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today. The topic of today's LinkedIn Live is all about understanding the buyer's journey, something that's near and dear to my heart as someone that writes a lot of content and has a foot in both sales and the marketing world, and really understanding how people buy, why they buy from us, and mapping out that journey they go through. So we'll wait a quick second here as people hop on. If you want to drop a comment, where you're from, what's going on, what you're looking to get out of today. We will have some time for Q&A at the end of the webinar as well, or the presentation, so we can, obviously answer any questions that come up during the presentation. So popping in here. So understanding the buyer's journey. So a couple things we'll talk about today, starting with number one, what is the buyer's journey? We'll talk about what it is and briefly kind of talk about why it's important. Then I'll go through two different buyer's journey frameworks that you can use in your business. So the first one is kind of a more typical funnel buyer's journey. And the second one is what I call three questions, and three questions that you might ask to kind of illuminate your buyer's journey. And then finally, at the end, we'll talk about how to use the buyer's journey to improve your sales and marketing processes. So quick about me before we get started. I'm James Roloff. I'm the owner consultant guy at Roloff Consulting. I've been doing internet marketing, online business stuff for about 20 years now, building my first website back in school. I have 9+ years of sales management experience. I have an MBA with a focus on organizational change. And through my past work with different clients, I've had over 100 different clients I've worked with, typically B2B, manufacturing, healthcare, software space. So lots of experience in helping sales and marketing teams be more effective, specifically through digital channels. So we're starting with what is the buyer's journey. And I think the big misconception when it comes to the sales process is that people go from having no problem at all to purchase, right? When we are doing our cold outreach, so many teams will do what essentially is this assumption that their buyer's journey is they go from no problem to buying from you. And if you reach out to someone and they're not ready to buy from you, but your messaging or your cold pitch is assuming they're at that bottom part of that buyer's journey, which is purchasing, you're going to completely miss the mark and you're not going to be effective in your communication with them. And what this means is that you're going to miss this giant opportunity. If you assume that maybe only 5-10% of your buyers are actually ready to buy any given time, if all of your messaging is down focused at this lower part of the buyer's journey funnel in the purchase section, you're going to miss tons of opportunity to talk to people through the other stages. So what it actually looks like is something more like no problem to problem awareness, to solution research, to decision making, and then finally to that purchase at the end of it. So that's really the goal of what I want to get through in today's presentation, is that the buyer's journey is an actual process. It's not just a jump from start to finish. And it's really important to recognize that this is true for almost every single purchase you make, right? If you're going to get a cheeseburger right now, it's 10 o'clock Central Time here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm not hungry. I just had some yogurt and some granola, so I have no desire at all to eat a burger. But in probably hour and a half-ish time frame, I'll start to feel a little hungry. So I'll go from no problem to a problem awareness. And then I'll probably walk over and talk to my wife and say, I'm getting hungry. What should we eat today? That's more of that solution research phase. We're going to talk about it, say what sounds good that time, and then we're going to say, okay, let's make a decision. Let's decide to go to Culver's. It's a great local restaurant here in the Midwest, or Chipotle, or do something to get some food. And then finally, after you made that decision, then you look at post-purchase. How do I feel? Does that burger in my stomach feel good? Does it feel terrible? What's going on with that? So every single purchase, from a car to computer software to a cheeseburger, all follows some sort of purchase process. And obviously the process of buying a burger happens a lot faster because everyone's hungry every single day than maybe buying a new car or enterprise software for your business. But ultimately, everyone's going through some sort of purchase process. And you, as a salesperson or a marketing person, needs to understand that buyer's journey and making sure you have messaging and content at each one of those stages, and that you're correctly identifying who your persona is and which stage they're in as you do your messaging. So why is the buyer's journey important? I kind of just teased it a little bit there with the talking about like the correct content, the right stages, but it's more than that too. So really it's about aligning your positioning with your prospect's business drivers. If you understand that buyer's journey and you understand what problems they're facing, how they're doing solution research, how they're making decisions, you're going to be able to better align your content, your messaging, and your strategy with the way they purchase, which is going to make you get not just better conversions, but end up getting better close rates at the very end of your deal too. It's also going to allow you to better and more relevant content creation. So working with sales and marketing together, talking about what kind of content is going to resonate best with our persona at each one of those stages that they go through during that buying process, which again is going to make it much more effective, get you better reach, better engagement of your content too. And then talking about more value to prospects at each stage. That's probably one of the biggest things I hear salespeople talk about when it comes to content is how can I provide content and value to my prospects at each stage in that buyer's journey. And I think the typical process is that most salespeople overemphasize that decision-making stage. They think that you talk about price and process and what it looks like to work with your team and really try and hard sell their prospects on working with them and buying now. But that's not going to really provide any value to someone who doesn't even realize they have a problem yet, or it's not going to provide any value to someone that realizes they have a problem but doesn't even know what solutions exist yet. So that's kind of that way that you can say, okay, knowing the buyer's journey, how can I deliver value at each stage in it? And then finally, developing accurate customer personas. We'll talk about that at the end too. That when you're actually developing out personas for your business, it's good to know your buyer's journey so that as you do customer interviews or as you flesh out that persona, you can accurately talk about what that specific persona needs at each one of those stages and develop a more wholesome or cohesive persona that you can use in your strategy development. So that's why it's important. So now let's actually dive into the different frameworks that you can use for developing a buyer's persona. So the first one is a standard buyer's journey funnel. So if you just Google buyer's journey or buyer's journey funnel, this is probably something you'll see. There's different words and different frameworks you can see within it. But generally speaking, it looks like this. At the very top of it, you have problem awareness. Then below that, you have solution research. Then you have decision making. And then finally, post-purchase. And what should be mentioned here is that with very few exceptions, this is a path-dependent process where people move through it. You can't really skip ahead stages. And maybe some stages take all of 1 minute to kind of think about, but people do walk through all these stages as they're making their purchase. So this is a more common buyer's journey funnel that you'll typically see. So we'll walk through each one of those different stages. So the very first stage, problem awareness, this is when your prospects discover that they have a problem or an opportunity they need to address. So again, going back to my example of my cheeseburger, this is where I go from not being hungry to being like, oh, I feel kind of hungry, right? So all of a sudden you start to feel like you have a problem you need to address. So maybe things are saying like, why isn't this working? How can I improve this process? What risks are there to my business? Or how can I get better results? So those are all things people think about as they are discovering they have a problem. So, a good example, if I was selling sales CRM software, this is where I'd probably start saying, how can I better track my deals, right? So we're losing deals. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what kind of data I have. That's when that sales manager might discover they have a problem, when that is they don't have the data they need. So that's a problem they have. Then the next thing you do after you realize a problem is you start looking for solutions to that problem. So trying to understand the approaches, the methods, the products that you might be able to use that'll help you solve that problem that they just discovered. So questions they might ask are like, what tools are available? What are industry best practices? What are other options for implementing? How should this be fixed or implemented? So this is where you start looking at actual products or services that you might be able to use to fix your problem. And not comparing this brand to that brand, but more saying like, what category of product or what category of service even fixes this problem that I have? So a lot of good opportunity here from a content perspective and from an educational perspective of talking to your prospects and kind of showing them like, here's all your options. And here's why we think our option might be the best, or here's how we handle our option. Here's how it solves your problem. So in this case, you're talking a lot about problem solving. So trying to align that problem they just discovered with the potential solution that your team might be able to offer. Next then is decision making. And this is where your prospect or your buyer goes through and tries to create a short list of people they might buy from, and then ultimately makes a decision on who to buy from. So they might start doing things like, how do I compare options? What are the prices of different options? Where's the proof of success? So things like testimonials, or reviews if you're an online business? And how can I trust this solution? So really this last decision-making stage, and like I mentioned just a minute ago, this is where a lot of salespeople focus a lot of their effort is on decision-making because they feel like that's where the sale is made, despite the fact that, the biggest opportunity is probably higher up in the funnel. But at decision-making, you're trying to show the value, the ROI, and the outcomes that your product and your company can specifically deliver over top of that of your competition. And again, competition also meaning doing nothing at all. Doesn't have to be a competitive organization. The competition can be the status quo. But this is really where we're trying to drive home the fact that you are ready to buy, and we have the options for you that will give you the best results, and you can trust us to make those decisions. And then finally, in this funnel framework that I have here is post-purchase, which is an often neglected part of the buyer's journey. And that is once someone's bought from you, what are they going to do afterwards, right? So this is them assessing, did my change get made successfully? Do I still have that problem? Did that solve my problem? So again, going back to my bad example of the cheeseburger, am I hungry anymore? How do I feel? Did the onions in my burger make my stomach upset? All these different things that might help you analyze your decision post-purchase, as well as things like, how can I better utilize the product that I have? How do I maintain this change? How do I get trained to do it better? So, and another last point there too is, when will I need to purchase this again? That's all that thought process that your buyer might be having, which is good things for you to then think about when you're talking about content and talking about strategy from a sales and marketing perspective. So that's the buyer's journey funnel. Again, if you just Google buyer's journey, this is probably a more typical version of what you might see from a buyer's journey perspective, but you might see different labels on it too, but they generally follow the same framework. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the 3 questions framework. And I like this from a brainstorming perspective because it's much, much easier and more simplified version of the buyer's journey. That's much more easy when you're in a group discussion of trying to brainstorm content or strategy at different parts of the buyer's journey. The 3 questions framework is a good one to use. So pretty basic stuff. What the process is it's why, how, and who. So why do I need to make this change? How do I make this change? And who's going to help me make it? So same concept, that it's a linear process that your buyer moves through to go through this, but it's a much more simplified version of it. So we'll walk through each one of these. So the very first question, why? This is the stage where your prospect becomes aware they have a change and why they need to make it. So again, that driver, that emotional or business, financial, whatever have you driver that is causing them to give their why about why they even care about this in the first place. So why am I not getting the results I need? Why do I need to make this change? Why is this important? These are all the things that your buyer is thinking about, and things that you can do from a content perspective to really help them understand why this is important, why they have a problem, and what that means for their business. So once they have their why, then they go to their how. So this is the stage where prospect starts to research products and services that will help them understand how to make that desired change. So how can I overcome this problem? How are other organizations doing this? How does this work? So more of that tactical process oriented, where if you can show them a very simple process of how to get from where they are now to where they want to be, you can then help them understand that how process and make them go on to the final stage, which is then who. So this is where they decide who they're going to work with. So who offers what I need? Who can I trust to make this change? Who provides the most value for the cost? Again, this is where I think a lot of businesses spend a lot of time. Again, it's like a decision-making stage. So go to your website right now, for instance, your team page, your history, all these things that talk about who you are as a business. That's all that kind of stuff, or testimonials, case studies, things like that too. Really, really valuable content. And if you're missing that stuff from a marketing or sales perspective in your proposals or on your website, you definitely need to make sure you have that, because it helps answer this final question. But I do encourage you to go back and think, okay, what about the why and the how stages? Do we have that kind of content? Am I including that kind of content in my sales messaging? When I reach out on a cold pitch or a cold email, or if I'm doing social media content, which stage of this process am I addressing? Because again, I think a lot of people focus more on the who, sometimes more on the how, and just talk about their products all the time or their services all the time. But you really want to think about it from a more cohesive strategy standpoint, which is kind of going to be our last section here, which is all about using the buyer's journey and how you can implement either one of these frameworks in your sales and marketing processes to actually improve your strategy and get better results throughout there too. So let's go through a few different ways that you could actually utilize buyer's journey. So number one is personas and interviews. And if you're not already doing customer interviews, that would be like a big takeaway of today, is to make sure that you're doing customer interviews. What I encourage you to do is put your interviews in the framework of the buyer's journey. And when you're talking to your customer, kind of walking through, when did you discover you had a problem? What did that problem look like? How is it impacting your business? Once you realized you had that problem, what were the discussions you had about different products or services that you would use? If you didn't pick our product, which product would you have used? To kind of help them understand the solution research side of things. And then decision making. What criteria were important for you in the decision-making process? How did you guys vet us versus our competitors? All those different questions you can use in the context of the buyer's journey is going to get you much better content and much better results. And just obviously taking notes in that process will then help you go back and then develop personas, which, a whole different topic for a different webinar and different discussion, but developing personas of who your ideal customer is. And then knowing then how your ideal customer buys from you is going to make you much more effective in your sales messaging and in your content strategy, because you're going to be more effective with that. So personas and interviews is a huge one. And then sales messaging. So kind of on the onset of the webinar, I was talking about that too, of, are you talking to your customer at the right stage? So when you reach out to your customer, are you correctly identifying which stage of the buyer's journey they're in? And are you meeting them where they're at with the right messaging, the right content that'll get them to convert to that next stage? And my assumption is, or my knowledge is from past working with clients, is that most people aren't doing that. They're not correctly identifying where their buyer is in their buyer's journey as they're reaching out to them, which means they're missing the mark. So someone might ignore you. They might think, I don't need this right now. This is nonsense, because you're not talking to them at the right stage. So this is a great thing to think about from a messaging standpoint, how you can nurture and cultivate leads. So if you're working with your BDR team, your account executive team, your marketing team together, talking about looking at that buyer's journey together as a team and thinking about how you can convert and nurture people at each one of those stages based on the buyer's journey and based on that knowledge you've had of talking to your customers, and really define that buyer's journey. So sales messaging is a huge one, a huge one. In any campaign you do from a sales campaign standpoint, if you're a smaller sales team and your sales reps are running their own campaigns and don't have BDRs, for instance, all of your campaigns, at the beginning of your campaigns and the onset of them, you should think about which stage of the buyer's journey are we targeting here, and or how are we going to convert people throughout this campaign from stage to stage, and how we're being intentional about understanding that process from a buyer's journey perspective. And then finally, we have the content creation side of things, which this is, more than anything else, I think the buyer's journey helps you make sure that you are not missing any major content that's really helpful for you in converting your customers. Because again, I think just like the sales process, I think a lot of companies overdo content on one stage of the buyer's journey and then underdo it on other parts of it. So it's really helpful to know, okay, I have all my bases covered. I have content for problem awareness, for solution research, for decision-making, and post-purchase. And on a regular cadence, as we're creating webinars or blog posts or social media posts, we're automatically, because we understand this stuff, we're automatically creating content at different stages in those journeys too. It also helps with brainstorming that content. So if your team's coming together and trying to come up with content ideas, understanding your buyer's journey is a great way to brainstorm content ideas, because you might say, okay, let's just think about, in a room right now, what are the problems that our customers express to us? Or what are the things that they say are troubling them in their business? Or what are the solutions they're researching? How do they research? Are they going online? Are they calling a consultant? Are they, what are they doing? Those are all things that are great for brainstorming discussions that will then lead you to better sales campaigns and better content, again, for social media, for email, for your website. So those are all the main ways that I like to use the buyer's journey in a sales and marketing process. And really what it comes back to is delivering the right content to the right people at the right time. And this is like, if you could just screenshot this and remember this from today's presentation, this is a huge part of the buyer's journey. Again, so I'll repeat it for the sake of making sure that I drive it home really, really hard. And that is delivering the right content to the right people at the right time. If you can do that, you're going to be far, far more effective in your sales process. You're going to get more lead conversions at the top of the funnel, and you're going to get more deal closures, close one, I should say, at the bottom of your funnel. And even going post-purchase, You're also going to have better ARR or better just ongoing engagements with your customer if you're addressing post-purchase things too. So I want to emphasize that that's all part of the buyer's journey. So one of the tools that I like to use when it comes to doing the buyer's journey is what I call a content matrix. And anyone who's engaged with my content in the past is probably familiar with this. But what I do is I have a spreadsheet. Along the columns, I have the buyer persona, so who your ideal customer is. And then down the rows, I actually have the different buyer stages or buyer's journey stages. And what you can then do then is brainstorm what content or what information or what questions are they asking. You can use it in a broad level of topics, or you could even use it as a brainstorming tool to come up with individual content pieces at each stage. Saying, so if my persona's name is Jill and she's a owner of a manufacturing business, I can say, what does Jill need in problem awareness? What does Jill need in solution research? What does she need in decision making? And just start hammering out content ideas directly in there. If you want more information on that, I do have a free mini course on my website, specifically on the content matrix with a little Word document you can use too. So pop on my website, I'll have the address here in a second. You can go there and sign up for that course and then get access to the content matrix, but you can also create yourself too. It's obviously a pretty simple matrix to use. Also, I want to say this before we leave and move into questions here too. If you are looking to apply the buyer's journey from a content perspective to LinkedIn content and social content, I do have an upcoming workshop on May 4th at 10 a.m. Central Time. This is a 120-minute or 2-hour workshop where we go through defining your persona, using the content matrix to actually come up with content ideas, and then looking at some post prompts and some post templates you can use for LinkedIn and writing some of those too. So I think I have 6 spots left in there, so a couple spots left. You can go to my website. You can learn more there and register there as well too. But I wanted to kind of drop that in the webinar today, just knowing it's kind of relevant to the buyer's journey. So that's what I have today. Hopefully all that information was helpful for you when you are looking at the buyer's journey and trying to use it for your business. I'll kind of pause now for any questions. But if you have questions, you can reach out to me right now. You can drop them in the comments either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Otherwise, feel free to email me or go to my website. I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions one-on-one or book a call with you, talk through things too. The address is there as well. So my main website is jroloff.com. That's where my courses are, my information is. And then just yesterday, I launched a new email newsletter specifically designed to help sales reps sell with social. It's called Sell with Social. And you can check that out and subscribe at sellwithsocial.email. So I'll pause for a second and give some time for questions. Okay, so I see one question here. So how can I measure the success of my marketing efforts at each stage of the buyer's journey? That's a really good question. And data and tracking success is a big part, or big, hassle, I should say, with looking at general pipeline management. So what I'd say is try and determine KPIs at each stage of the buyer's journey. So whether it's things like views, impressions, conversions, things that make sense based on that stage. So problem awareness, for instance, that stage it might be how many people are attending our webinars based on these topics, or how many impressions are blog posts getting that are more of that problem, question answers oriented type content, and then measuring conversion. So how many people are signing up for our newsletter? How many people are downloading our guides? How many people are filling our contact form or lead form? Things like that too. So trying to think about views, conversions, engagements that you can identify at each stage. Some are much easier than others. Decision making, the big metric obviously is how many deals have you won? What's your conversion rate? But as you move higher up in the funnel, it might be a little bit different. And that might be something too that your sales and marketing team work on together. Just knowing that sometimes you might have a marketing team is more managing like your website assets or things like that too, where your sales team is more managing in the CRM and moving deals forward. So you might have different metrics there, depending on which team is measuring and managing that part of the buyer's journey. Great, it's a great question. Another question, follow-up question to that then. So how can I align my sales and marketing efforts to support the buyer's journey? Big thing there is just get them in a room together. I think is a starting point for sales and marketing teams. Get them in a room together. And we just did a presentation recently on sales and marketing alignment. Get them in the room together, get them talking, get them aligned on revenue. So your goal on both sales and marketing is to generate revenue for your business. So trying to align the sales and marketing teams around the concept of how are we driving revenue for the business. Marketing is trying to generate and capture demand from the entire market that's available to them. And sales is really trying to capture and generate revenue from individual businesses and individual deals. And so working together on that and trying to say, okay, who owns this part of the process? So content creation, who owns outreach, who owns social working and social networking? Maybe there's a brand social network and there's personal brands of your sales team. And how are you doing those different things that work together that are driving towards revenue for the business? And then as you kind of define those goals together and who owns what, then you can start brainstorming. So I would say like meet at least monthly with your sales and marketing team together and help come up with content ideas of saying, okay, this is our persona. This is Jill. Sales, when you're out there talking to your customers, what kind of questions are they asking? What kind of things are they asking for to be included in proposal documents that we can obviously realize the fact that those are our decision criteria. So how can we address that on the website, or how can we address that in social media posts? So really brainstorming together, using the buyer's journey or using the content matrix to kind of come up with ideas, and then handing off to say, okay, say in sales team, go make a video and post it on your LinkedIn about this topic. Marketing is going to do a webinar on this, and we're going to do it next month. And sales team, your job is to go out and invite people to this webinar based on the buyer's journey we're looking at. So really, to simplify it, meet monthly, define your revenue goals and how you're going to get there, and then brainstorm content together, I think are the big things when it comes to aligning sales and marketing around the topic of buyer's journey. It's a great question. Thank you. We have one more minute here for any questions. I know we're kind of at the top here of 10:30. And obviously, again, if you have any you want to look back at, or as you're kind of brainstorming buyer's journey and thinking about things, feel free to go to a website, email me, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk about things or provide any resources that might be helpful for you on this topic or adjacent topics when it comes to the buyer's journey, customer personas, content creation, selling with social, whatever it might be. I'm always happy to talk about that too. So it looks like I don't see any other questions coming in. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a great day.